Good evening, St Mary's. So now it's my time to go onto the YouTube channel. I'm here to read you a bedtime story. I'm here with my daughter's rabbit, Peter Rabbit, who's going to join us for our story. And I've picked a brand new book, a book that I've not even read yet. And this is going to be based more for Key Stage 2. And those children that have had me as a teacher will recognise the author. It's one of my favourite authors, Ross Mackenzie, and this is his brand new book. So it's the same author who wrote Shadowsmith, the Nowhere Emporium and the Elsewhere Emporium. This book doesn't link, it stands alone. I haven't even started reading it myself yet, but I'm going to share it and read it with you over the next couple of days, weeks, and however long we're going to be doing this for. And I'm quite excited because those of you that know will know I love this book. I will give a slight warning. It does say it's there to thrill and delight, and it is with vivid magic and a tiny bit scary in places, but I've been assured no worse than Shadowsmith and the Nowhere Emporium. I do, before I start reading the book, have to do a few legal things. I've actually contacted Ross Mackenzie to get his permission to read this on the YouTube channel, which he has said it's absolutely fine whilst we are all in lockdown. But I do need to state that this is with permission of Anderson Press Limited Company. Obviously, I've mentioned already that Ross Mackenzie is the author, but we also have Julia Erdell, I hope I got that right, who is the illustrator. So I just needed to share that with you. But I'm very much looking forward to reading this book. I'm going to get started, and I'm going to aim to read a chapter a night to you. So, chapter 1 is called Shadow Jack. So, there was a man made of midnight, and his name was Shadow Jack. The name suited him well. His clothes were dark and his hair was darker. His eyes were pools of shadow. As he slipped through the winding labyrinth of the slums on the night our story begins, his intentions were the darkest of all. He crossed the wooden bridge to a putrid lump of half-flooded land cut off from the rest of the slums. Filth lay thick on crowded, leaning dwellings, and the rain-swollen river was as black as tar and coated with a film of weed and scum. There were a few streets or alleys or courts. Mostly there were only waterways and flooded ditches, channels crossing this way and that, with houses built upon crazy-looking wooden stilts to escape the water, which seemed to swell every minute with the rain. This was Devil's Island, and even at such late hour there were huddles of coats gathered on wooden boats. Shifting movements in the darkest corners, they left Shadow Jack to his business. He took a deep sniff of the soaking air, searching through the many layers of death and filth and disease. There you are. Cutting down an alley, he came out of the bank of the canal and sniffed again. Somewhere nearby, over the rain, he heard an argument and a fight, and then all was suddenly quiet. Across the waterway, the flicker of a lamp caught his sharp eyes, where a sorry figure stumbled to the glassless window and tipped a bucket of sewage onto the streets. Shadow Jack made a movement, quick, fluid, and at once he was gone from that spot in the alley, and a black raven the size of an eagle was soaring into the wild night. The raven circled, looking down over the winding waterways and canals and crumbling buildings on Devil's Island, and then it swooped down, coming to rest on the ledge of a high window. The raven hopped into the damp-ridden apartment within. With a sound like a dark velvet, it became a man once more, wrapped in a midnight coat. The room was bare, save for a simple bed and a wooden chair under the small window. It seemed at first glance that there was nobody there, but Shadow Jack heard a heartbeat, fast and frightened. "We both know you're here, Jenny Winter," he said in a low, dangerous voice. "You know what I am. Your tricks won't cut it with me. I hear your heart, hear how frightened you are, and you should be frightened." He stopped, because across the room there was a shimmer in the air, and a woman appeared before his eyes as if she had been wearing a cloak made of the very fabric of the world and had slipped it off. Jenny Winter raised a trembling hand. In her fingers she clutched a thin wooden stick, fitted, like a pistol, with a round of chambers. But instead of bullets, these chambers held small bottles, and inside the bottles were coils of glowing coloured light. Shadow Jack picked a speck off his coat sleeve and examined it before flicking it away. "You can't kill me with your magic, you know. 12 of you have tried and failed already." He took a small step towards her, and she raised her wand. The spells glowed fiercely in their bottles. "One more step, and I'll send you through that wall." Shadow Jack turned his eyes skyward. "Look! We both know this journey has come to an end. You're on your own, Jenny. Wherever you go, I'll find you. You've been running so long. You must be exhausted." His voice had taken on a soothing tone. "Imagine how wonderful it would feel to be free of the weight you've been carrying. Give me the doomsday spell, Jenny, and it'll all go away." Jenny's thoughts betrayed her. Her hand made an involuntary movement to the place in her coat where she had stowed the most precious of objects. Her eyes met his. Shadow Jack lunged forward. It happened in a fraction of a moment. Jenny Winter flicked her wand at him, and one of the magic bottles shone bright as a new coin in the sun. The tip of the wand glowed, and a bullet of blazing light hit Shadow Jack in the chest. It sent him crashing through the rotten brick wall, and he was falling. Jenny watched him. When he hit the water, splash! She seemed to wake from a daze, and she turned and ran, barging down the stairs and out into the driving rain. Out of the alley, across the narrow wooden footbridge, the river churning below, and along another short street, falling on her front in a hurry and a panic, staggering back and continuing on, then across Devil's Gate's bridge to the city proper. There was no plan in Jenny's mind, no safe place to run to. The rain and wind pelted her, merciless and cold, and her hair was stuck to her face. Around a corner, down a narrow winding path, she scattered a pack of drunks, and they yelled and cursed after her. She ran and she ran and she ran until her lungs burned and her legs stiffened, and every breath was a knife in her chest. At last she stopped in a dark, deserted lane branching off of Milk Street, collapsing to her knees in a puddle, sucking in ragged gulps of air. But there was no time for rest. She struggled up, found a manhole cover, and pointed her wand at the ground. One of the bottles in the round lit up, and a blazing spell shot out at the wand and hit the metal cover, leaving a crumbling black hole in the street. The sewer stream below was a foaming torrent. Jenny knew at once if she tried to escape through the tunnels, she'd surely drown. Something moved, up on the rooftops. A huge raven circled down through the storm, landed in the lane up ahead. It spread its wings and made a movement, and in a swirl of rain and mist, Shadow Jack was back. Jenny raised her wand and shot a spell through the night towards him. He dodged it. Desperately she shot another and another, until each spell in the bottles loaded in her wand was empty. "No more," said Shadow Jack. He held out an open hand, and to his amazement, Jenny reached into her coat and produced the small box made of polished wood. He stared at it, hardly able to believe that after all these years, here it was, the doomsday spell, the key to his freedom. He reached out, but Jenny Winter spat at him, spun away and tossed the box into the coursing sewer water below. "You hag!" Shadow Jack clubbed Jenny on the side of the head, knocking her down, and stared into the rushing stream. When he turned back, she was fiddling madly with the compartments in her belt. She pulled out a bottle and tried to load it into the wand's revolver chamber, but he kicked at her hand, and both the wand and spell, the bottle, went spinning. As he stood over her, something on her glinted, and Shadowjack reached down and grabbed the slender chain she wore around her neck. With a jerk, he snapped it, and the wooden pendant slid into his hand. The pendant was the shape of a teardrop, and something had been etched into it, a symbol, so simplistic that it might have been the work of a child. A bird in flight. Shadowjack gazed at it for a moment, then reached into one of many pockets on his long black coat. When he brought his hand out and opened his fist, there were 11 identical pendants nestling in his palm. "Yours is the last," he said, dropping the pendant he'd taken from her onto the palm. "A shame one of the 13 was destroyed. I would have liked a complete collection." He closed his long fingers around the trinkets and tipped them back into his pocket. "I want you to know, Jenny Winter, that some of your friends broke easily when I found them over the years, without much persuasion at all. A few of them begged and bargained and said names and locations spilled out of them until only your name remained." Jenny stared up at him through her soaking red hair, blood from her mouth mixed with the rain and the tears on her face. "In all the old legends, the Darjin are powerful beings." "In all the old legends, the Darjin are powerful beings," she said. "But you're not powerful. You're weak. You're broken and desperate, and all I feel is pity." Shadowjack crouched down, and Jenny noticed for the first time that he cast no shadow. "I don't care what you feel. I only care about finding that spell and claiming back my freedom." "You don't know what you're doing. If Hester gets the spell, it'll change everything." "What happens in the world is of no concern to me. When I am free, there are no other worlds waiting. In any case, you won't have to worry about the future." Shadowjack leaned in, almost as though he was going to kiss her. He opened his mouth wide, and the bones in his jaw clicked and snapped, revealing rows of sharp teeth and gaping, rotten darkness. Jenny could not move, could not breathe. "Are you frightened of me now, Jenny Winter?" Jenny screamed. And that is chapter 1. Chapter 2, which I will start next time, is called Beneath the Streets. I know we've not heard much at the moment, but if you want to contact the school with any thoughts or predictions of what the book might be about, that would be a great idea. Now, me and Peter Rabbit are heading off to bed. I hope you are too. I hope you're all well, keeping safe, washing your hands and staying home. Okay? We miss you all at school, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Have a happy Easter.